Hey, welcome back, Visions fans. Today, another classroom session real quick. We're going to go over area and unit resistance, why they're so important, because they are very prevalent in the game. They just may not be optimized to the extent that you think, and I think there's a slight misunderstanding in the overall damage calculation, and I think this video will hopefully open some eyes to why these are, really important aspects to the game. So there's four types of resistances in the game. You have defense and spirit resistances, which are, either physical or magic attack, or how they get activated. Weapon type resistances, and I call them weapon type, and that's your slash, pierce, strike, missile, magic, so you can build resistances against the weapon types or attack types. There's element resistances, so something like on an Esper, when you equip it, you get 10% strength to an element of that, whatever the Esper is and what their type is. And then there's unit and area resistances, and that is completely defined upon whether the incoming attack is a single unit attack or an AoE attack. Now, even if you use an AoE on one person, it's still considered an area attack, despite the fact that it only hits one person. And this is a really important part of the resistance that I think gets slept on more often than not in the community. So in order to really, break things down, we need to understand the damage formula. The reduced for physical attacks, and this is approximately to a really high level. I promise we're not going to get bogged down on this. I have a whole other video that goes super in depth if you want to see it. I'll leave the description below. So step one, essentially what it is, you take a character's attack times all their multipliers, and that's, slash attack up, and if it's like Titus, you have a water attack up, that's in there. So add up all the modifiers, and then you essentially get this incoming damage. That's what I call it. It's incoming damage. So a character attacking, gets this damage amount, and bam, incoming damage to the person they're attacking. You take that incoming damage, so now we're at the part where person's, oncoming attack, and essentially they get to mitigate some of that incoming damage via a variety of ways, and it's the four ways we just talked about. So what, the math of it is 1 minus the defense. So if you have 10 defense, you're technically going to reduce the incoming damage by 10%. If you have 15 defense, you're going to reduce it by 15%. If you get defense broken, and you have minus 10 defense, you'll actually multiply the incoming damage by 10%. It's why breaks are so hurtful. Sidetrack. Weapon resist, which we talked about, element resist, and then unit and area resist. So you essentially have four ways to mitigate that incoming damage. And the final part of it, there's a bravery multiplier and the character element type. We're not going to talk about that. We're really going to focus on the box. So the long story of the math of this, call it the multiplicative effect, because it's essentially the incoming damage, then it gets multiplied by this, then multiplied by that, multiplied by that. Because it's multiplicative, it means they're all equal in scale, and the order of it doesn't matter. So it doesn't matter if, how it gets applied. It all ends up equaling the same no matter which one you multiply first or second. And then they're all equal in scale. And the way I mean to say that, in other words, 20 defense takes off the same amount of incoming damage as 20 slash resistance, provided it's a slash attack. So if it's a slash attack coming in, 20 defense is equal to 20 slash resistance. That's really important to remember, not only just for how you're optimizing people, and how you can potentially stack the amount of things that you can guard against. I didn't animate this. I'm stupid. Why unit and area resist matters. So it's really the versatility of its application to any attack type. So, we're going to talk about area resist primarily here, because I think it's the one that's the most common against the Helena meta at the moment, where you're going to use more often. So area resist works for both physical and magical, all weapon types, so any slash, any magic, any pierce, any missile, and all elements. So any kind of water, fire, etc. Overall, area resist has a wider umbrella of things that I can guard against. So if you have someone that's got 20 slash resistance, that's cool and all, but if you're up against someone that has pierce or missile or strike, that 20% resistance gets no value whatsoever. But at least with an area resistance, it's a wider umbrella of things you could potentially guard against. It's a way to hedge a little bit easier. There's no real area and perils in the game either. This is super important in the current meta, where if you're looking at King Mon and Dwayne and Helena, they have spear break and defense break and slash resistance down and dark resistance down. All those imperils will vastly increase their damage output, and although you can defend against them to some degree, there is no real area imperil. So no matter what, they can't break this stat on you. It will remain intact no matter what. And then finally, it's an additional way to stack against a certain type of damage. So if you have, you're trying to resist against magic, like Plane in particular, where it's mostly all AoE, go ahead and give 20% magic resist, but if you also give 20% area resist, the two of them stacking together will go essentially from 20% to, I think, 36% damage reduction overall. That's the math of it. it's really a great way to stack against anticipated kinds of damage in this really wide umbrella of what to expect. So, we also talk about potential like 2-for-1 utility. If you're making a party of 3 and you're trying to guard against slash and magic, you're going to use Solidus and Fenrir. Well, technically, because of that multiplicative effect we were talking about, if someone takes magic damage, this Solidus card isn't being used at the moment. It's essentially a useless card at the moment if they're taking incoming magic damage of an area type. But if you have something like Death Machine or Holiday Party on, that 20 area resist, provided it's an area attack, will essentially do the same mitigation to both incoming slash and incoming magic and incoming pierce and incoming, all of it. So essentially you get a more effective utilization of your cards. Now, I'm not saying use Holiday Party, don't use these two. Technically, you should still use Death Machine and use one of these two. But the fact of the matter is that you may not be optimizing out of your 3 characters, and this is a really great one because it can't really be imperiled the same way the other ones can. Although you still will probably take in the long story of it, same amount of damage if you get imperiled. It's just a matter of hedging against other attack types more consistently. So that's it in a nutshell. It's something I wanted to talk about because it is everywhere in the game. You're going to notice King Mont has some innate area resist. That was one of the buffs to Rain. That's one of the things on a lot of these cards. If you're looking at the King Mont card, it's got 10 area resist on it. If you're stacking all these area resist, so if you can get up to like 40 or 50 area resist, that means any incoming attack is going to essentially have 50% of it taken off on an area attack. That's immense. It's absolutely immense, and it can't be imperiled or broken. So wanted to at least talk about it. Hopefully it's something that you've utilized. I think a really fun one to talk about is that I just recently kind of came around to was the Brigandine, which is one of the UR things from the raids. And when I first saw it, I'm like, this is great, 20 defense, but we're in a magic meta. I don't want to have defense on. That's the whole thing of the multiplicative effect. The technically has 10 area resist on it. That 10 area resist technically means any area incoming attack from Black Rose Elena is going to be reduced by 10%. So that 10 area resist is basically 10 magic resist, and you get 20 defense. That's why it's so strong. So it's not just a defensive piece of equipment. That area resist on there is basically a 10% resistance to any kind of incoming area attack, which has a lot of versatility. So hopefully those of you have seen this, anecdotally, I've had a lot of use out of it recently. Just my Guild War yesterday, I put the Death Machine card on in addition to one of those others, and I got 4 defense in Guild War battle just because there's so many ways to make your team move together in a group, and if you can stack resistances like that, you can kind of get away with turtling in some degree. So I'm rambling at this point, but hopefully learned something today, and I'll talk to you all soon. So thanks, guys.